Palestinian resistance, Hamas and Israel carried out the sixth hostage exchange in compliance with the ceasefire agreement. In Ethiopia, the 38th African Union Summit opened, focusing on reparations for historical injustices. And in Germany, hundreds protested in Munich against a security conference being held in the city. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. This Friday, the President of the National Assembly of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, detailed a costly operation financed by the U.S. aid for the extreme right wing of Venezuela, the aim of plundering national resources, balkanizing the nation, and contributing to the exodus of numerous citizens. The congressman affirmed that former President Joe Biden had given funds from the U.S. agency to Maria Corina Machado, leader of the extreme right-wing opposition, to promote fascist actions in the context of the July 28th elections. He pointed out that this was not a recent operation, but one that had been going on for years, financing assassinations, human trafficking, and the payment of media and journalists to distort the image of the country.
So that this operation would have taken place where any Spanish citizen knew the name of the president of Venezuela and said Nicolas Maduro, but had no idea who the president of Portugal was, nor had any idea of the name of the Italian prime minister. She often did not know the name of the president of her community, but she did know about Nicolas Maduro. So that all this psychological operation of hatred against the process of change that has taken place in Venezuela has been generated. So that all this psychological warfare has been generated, which led together with the economic sanctions, which is, let's say, a real substrate, and the issue of the psychological warfare was what generated the issue of Venezuelan migration.
The Venezuelan government dismantled a network of internal smugglers known as coyotes and arrested 3 members of the gang who were trying to destabilize the country. During the program, Sin Truco ni Mañas, without tricks or gimmicks, the Minister of the Interior, Justice and Peace, Diosdado Cabello, said that the extreme right wing is trying to sow a campaign of fear and insecurity among young people. Cabello pointed out that part of the funding for this operation came from the United States Agency for International Development. He also reaffirmed the dismantling of the auto operation and indicated that the third aspect was the kidnapping of Magistrate Michael Moreno.
We dismantled this operation, which had a third side, which was the kidnapping of Magistrate Michael Moreno, kidnapping him and selling him. That is the term they used, to sell him, as a kidnapper does, a kidnapper who sells merchandise, and they offered $300,000 to each one of those who participated in the operation.
And in Uruguay, the 50th legislature will be sworn in this Saturday prior to the inauguration of President-elect Yamandu Orsi next March the 1st. The new parliament legislature will be made up of deputies voted by Uruguayans in the last general elections of October 2024. Once the new members of parliament are vested, negotiations among legislators are expected to take place, for no party has a parliamentary majority. Up in the agenda for the new parliament is the swearing-in ceremony for incoming President Orsi on March 1st. On Saturday, the sixth exchange of hostages and prisoners took place in compliance with the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas Palestinian resistance movement. Israel released over 360 Palestinian prisoners, while Hamas handed over 3 Israelis who had been held captive in the Gaza Strip since October 7, 2023. With these exchanges, the Palestinian movement reaffirms its commitment to end hostilities. The sixth hostage and prisoner exchange comes despite over 270 violations by Israel of the truce in force since January 19, 2025. And amid escalating violence in the West Bank, Israeli settlers attacked Palestinians in Beit Lam, injuring at least 15. Palestinian news agencies report that the settlers physically assaulted Palestinians in the Al Maniyah Desert east of Bethlehem using sticks, rifle butts, and tear gas canisters. The attack injured 15 members of one family. The Israeli settlers also set fire to 2 vehicles, vandalized several others, and destroyed solar panels, tents, and barracks in the area. Clashes also broke out in Nablus between Israeli forces and local residents. Israeli forces raided the town, and a young man was reportedly abducted during the clashes. We now have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Ethiopia hosts the 38th African Union Summit, focusing on reparations for historical injustices. African leaders and international guests arrive in the capital city, Addis Ababa, to discuss strategies to boost development and strengthen ties in the region. Among the bloc's main challenges is to find a solution to the insecurity crisis facing the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In this context, the Saudi Angolan President Joao Lourenço assumed the presidency of the alliance with the intention of solving the conflicts that the continent faces.
These apocalyptic landscapes that Palestine, the Gaza Strip, and the Gaza population in particular, offer today, after more than a year of war that has destroyed all forms of life and property, continue to take place in the almost total silence of the world's powers. If it is not for the call, by some, for the systematic deportation of Palestinians from their land, it is the height of absurdity. It is truly the height of absurdity.
And UN Chief Antonio Guterres on Saturday demanded the Democratic Republic of the Congo's territorial integrity be respected and a regional war avoided.
And the fighting that is raging in South Kivu as a result of the continuation of the M23 offensive threatens to push the entire region over the precipice. Regional escalation must be avoided at all costs. There is no military solution. The deadlock must end, the dialogue must begin, and the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC must be respected.
In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, residents flee Bukavu city due to the armed conflict in the east of the country. Local authorities reported that the M23 rebel group and the Congo River Alliance took control of Kavumu Airport, 45 kilometers away from Bukavu. Authorities also warned that the residents of the city were forced to move due to the armed aggression and the absence of military forces in the region. Local media registered looting by M23 troops as well as several regional political leaders missing. And in Bolivia, authorities continue with rescue efforts for those affected by flooding. The armed forces reported that over 12 tons of humanitarian aid were delivered for the benefit of those affected. They also stated that the rains overflowed the Tipuani River, leaving numerous families affected, while 665 houses were damaged and 333 were destroyed. Authorities issued 2 warnings for rising river levels in the country's 9 departments, as well as snowfall and hail for the week in the highlands and valleys. In Argentina, authorities are alerting about the increase of cyanobacteria in the waters of Entre Rios province. Specialists in biology warn that cyanobacteria produce toxins that affect not only the local fauna, but also the people who come in contact with the contaminated water. Scientists say the proliferation of this bacterium usually occurs from February to April, but they say it is mostly due to human activity. They pointed out the impact of climate change and the construction of the Salto Grande Dam in Concordia as factors that alter the hydrological cycle. And in Morocco, the Agriculture Ministry warned about the effects of the ongoing drought in the country. Authorities reported that they have been facing a severe drought for more than 6 years, which has caused significant losses to agriculture. In this regard, they detailed that grazing land is limited, meat production has decreased, and traders have been forced to increase imports of cattle and red meat. The government took measures to stabilize domestic prices and remove import taxes and value-added tax on livestock. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Abkhazia, polling stations opened as voters took part in the early presidential elections. The Central Electoral Commission reported that over 134,000 people are eligible to exercise their right to vote in some 152 polling stations. Electoral authorities said that preliminary results will be announced on February 16th. The elections take place after Parliament accepted President Aslan Sania's resignation in November. On Saturday in Germany at the Munich Security Conference, a heated exchange took place between German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and U.S. Vice President James D. Vance, which was broadcast live. Ukraine was at the heart of the dispute between the two countries, which apparently no longer have common ground on the conflict. The German Chancellor said a peace deal with Russia would only be acceptable if it were to guarantee Ukraine's sovereignty. Berlin fears Washington's meddling puts Ukraine's sovereignty at risk, given some remarks made by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on the conduct of the White House. With this level of tension, Vice President Vance expressed his support for the far right, a gesture rejected in strong terms by the German Chancellor, although his own party made a pact with the far right to tackle immigration issues. Meanwhile, hundreds of people took to the streets to demonstrate against the security conference taking place in Munich. This Saturday, protesters gathered around the venue where officials and world leaders addressed issues related to global conflicts. Demonstrators denounced the more than 1 million deaths resulting from the war in Ukraine and the Israeli genocide against the Gaza Strip. In this regard, protesters demanded the end of all rearmament policies implemented by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
It would be so important for German politics to turn to negotiations instead of further shooting. Over 1 million dead in the Ukraine war, a Gaza Strip which has become uninhabitable by now, with the corpses of thousands of killed women and children, and global warming rising more than 1.5 degrees. These are all essential reasons to finally stop the politics of rearmament and escalation of the NATO countries under the leadership of the United States and its allies.
At the security conference in Germany, the President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, criticized the international community for its lack of action in the face of growing violence in his country. The Congolese president said rebel groups in his country are advancing at the expense of civilians, and he denounced that the international community remains idle. He said Rwanda has been promoting rebel movements for years, seeking to destabilize the country without any sign of condemnation from any country. The Congolese president urged for measures to be taken to protect the integrity of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and to safeguard civilian population.
If today my country has been attacked in an ostentatious fashion, and this hasn't practically moved the wider world, this totally calls into question international law. How can the integrity of a country be violated like this? Its people massacred without the country responsible being sanctioned. This raises the question of the United Nations, which for me has become a two-tier organization depending on whether you are among the powerful or privileged countries, or whether you are among the weak and disadvantaged.
The Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova on Friday denied that Russia was responsible for the drone attack on the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. She made it clear that the accusation that was a provocation organized by Kiev to blackmail the West into providing it with more aid while the meeting was being held in Munich to discuss the war in Ukraine. Zakharova further stated that the Kiev regime's attacks on nuclear facilities and their use as an element of blackmail in the international arena are exactly what should be a topic of discussion at the Munich conference, since it is devoted to security issues in Europe. An detachment of Russian Navy ships arrived in Indonesia to participate in the Komodo 2025 multilateral naval exercises. The detachment is comprised of the Eski and Hiro corvettes of the Pacific Fleet and the auxiliary oil tanker Pashenga. The Indonesian Ministry of Defense stated that the opening ceremony of the Games will take place on February 16th. Ships and observers from more than 30 countries are expected to participate during the Komodo 2025 exercise. In Italy, Rome's Galleria Borghese is offering an unusual Valentine's Day experience, taking visitors on a journey of love through art inspired by the goddess Venus. The event, named the Goddess of Love, 1,000 Faces of Venus, features the statue of Pauline Borghese by Antonio Canova, representing Napoleon Bonaparte's younger sister in the guise of a victorious Venus and the so-called Cabinet of the Venuses, a room where most of the paintings represent Venus and stories related to her myth. For a few days until February 16th, visitors will be able to immerse themselves in the experience. The Galleria Borghese houses one of the most important art collections in the world. It includes ancient Greek and Roman sculptures, bas-reliefs and mosaics, as well as paintings and sculptures from the 15th to the 19th centuries.
On the occasion of the days dedicated to the Feast of St. Valentine's Day, the Galleria Borghese has organized these insights on Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, starting from the two rooms where she is the protagonist, like here. The room dedicated to Venus Victrix, Latin for Venus Victorious, where we see Antonio Canova's sculpture of Pauline Bonaparte Borghese in the guise of not just any other Venus, but of a victorious Venus.
Yeah, so the guide was telling us about how the statue was meant to embody Venere and romantic love. But there was also another side to the story, the real side, which is that Paulina was actually in Rome to get married to someone she did not love for very political reasons. So I think that contrast of the story with the reality of it is very interesting.
We are from the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.